Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Oh, my democracy, my democracy. All we ever hear from the Democrats and these lefties is how democracy is at risk because of the fringe alt-right and the white privileged religious zealots. Except there's only a couple problems with this talking point. Firstly, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but the United States of America is not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic. You know that whole democracy thing? I think that applies more so to states than it does to the federal government. I think that's kind of the point. It's kind of the point that Alabama is going to have different laws and different values and different policies than California. I mean, you don't see right-wingers with red faces like tomatoes screeching because California passed a law that they didn't like. I mean, sure, right-wingers will make fun of California. They'll call it an S-hole, they'll call it California, and a lot of people will just straight up move to Texas because they can't handle it anymore. But for the most part, right-wingers respect the will of the California voter. If out-of-their-mind lunatic leftists want to vote for out-of-their-mind lunatic leftists and enact terrible, naive policies, then go right ahead. But when lefties don't get what they want in states they don't even live in, well, the reaction is obvious. Ah, democracy. Except, not exactly. No wonder the polling data that we covered last week shows that Republicans lead by +1 on the issue of preserving democracy. Regardless of the constant ridiculous rhetoric that we see from these leftoids, all the fear-mongering surrounding this concept, they're still losing because they are the most undemocratic authoritarians in the American political system. And that's the topic of today's video, starring Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's on an absolute roll lately, showing how unhinged, undemocratic, and authoritarian these far lefties really are. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean. We've got some stuff to get into. Alright folks, so what is the most democratic course of action when you don't get what you want? Is it to refocus and regroup? Start to campaign for American votes and American support for your policy decisions? No, of course not. It's to scream and screech and threaten impeachment. When you don't get what you want, allege some sort of phony crime like we saw against Donald Trump for how many years, and try to launch an impeachment attempt against people that you disagree with in government who make proper constitutional decisions. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez claims Supreme Court justices lied under oath and suggests impeachment.
To all future nominees that they can now lie to duly elected members of the United States Senate in order to secure Supreme Court confirmations and seats on the Supreme Court. This is what we're saying.
Do you think lying in a confirmation hearing is an impeachable offense?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. I believe lying under oath is an impeachable offense.
Now, I keep seeing this from so many different lefties, that it should be a crime that Donald Trump's 3 appointed justices lied under oath claiming that they wouldn't touch Roe v. Wade. Now, first of all, is that an impeachable offense? Nah, I don't think so. But secondly, the actual assertion itself, the actual claim that any of these Supreme Court justices actually lied under oath doesn't seem to really be true at all. For instance, Amy Coney Barrett. She was repeatedly asked this question from Democrat senators. Are you going to vote to repeal Roe v. Wade? Are you going to vote to repeal Roe v. Wade? And Amy Coney Barrett's response each and every single time was that Roe v. Wade was settled law, which it is. From what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Amy Coney Barrett never explicitly said that if I am assigned to the bench that I will not repeal this very important democratic law. She merely said it's settled law because that's what it is. Not to mention this idea that you can't change your mind. I mean, talk about flip-floppers. It seems as though Democrats want to make it an impeachable offense and a crime to support a certain policy decision once and then later in the future support another. A little bit interesting, considering every single major Democrat politician with gray hair, all the old-timers like Joe and the crew and Obama and the rest of them, had very different ideas and positions just 20 or 30 years ago on issues like abortion and gay marriage, immigration reform and border security. Are they all now guilty of high crimes and should impeached from their positions in office? Well, probably according to these extreme leftists, yes. These people are nuts. Because Democrats are not democratic, as ironic as that is. And especially not this new age far left squad type. They're authoritarian cultists. Do as we say, or be shunned.
Also, if you live in a blue area, when people say go vote, that should include primary elections too. Because the thing that a lot of people don't like to talk about is the fact that not every Democrat is pro-choice, okay? So the ones that aren't, we really need to reassess if it's appropriate for them to continue to serve in 2022.
AOC says, not every Democrat is pro-choice. We really need to reassess if it's appropriate for them to continue to serve. Everyone must conform to all ideas or they must be impeached or removed, and it is inappropriate for them to continue to serve within our party. Does that sound like democracy and diversity of thought to you? That's an authoritarian cult, as I keep saying. I mean, how utterly ironic that they're called the Democrats. There's nothing democratic about their political philosophy, and this is why they're having such an utter meltdown. I mean, after this Roe v. Wade decision, nothing changes for them. They live in New York, Chicago, California, Portland, Seattle, Boston, all these big left-wing cities and left-wing states, and the decision doesn't even affect them. But they just can't handle the fact that other states with different values are voting for their own laws. I mean, I feel like that really puts it into perspective and shows you how disgraceful these people really are. But of course, this irony isn't anything new. Democrats fear-mongering about democracy for the last 6 years, meanwhile advocating for what seems to be the abolition of democracy. Hate to sound like a broken record and say it again, but let's list it off. Abolishing the Electoral College, statehood to DC and Puerto Rico, stacking the Senate for the Democrat Party, stacking the Supreme Court, abolishing the filibuster. Everything they do is to corrupt the system for their own benefit and their own power. When they lose in the democratic world, they want to destroy democracy so they can ultimately get what they want. And now, of course, they're doing the same thing.
We have many ideas. We have some ideas coming from Senator Warren, signed a letter along with 25 other Democratic senators asking President Biden to explore opening healthcare clinics on federal lands in red states in order to help people access the health care and abortion services that they need.
Oh, well, if states aren't going to follow our laws and what we want in California, well, then we're just going to force it onto these states on federal land so people can get access to what we believe is a constitutional right. I mean, does that sound like democracy to you? AOC at the start of that clip says we have many ideas, none of which are to campaign to win on the merit of ideas and win the debate, convince people in states to vote with them, and try to get 60 senators in the House to vote to codify Roe. No, of course not. That would be too democratic for the Democrats. Their plan is yet again another undemocratic gimmick to force their values on other states. And if that doesn't work, well, Elizabeth Warren has another idea. Yep, you probably guessed it. Supreme Court expansion. Stack the Supreme Court. Elizabeth Warren calls for Supreme Court expansion. This court has lost legitimacy. They just took the last of it and set a torch to it with the Roe v. Wade opinion.
This court has lost legitimacy. They have burned whatever legitimacy they may still have had after their gun decision, after their voting decision, after their union decision. They just took the last of it and set a torch to it with the Roe versus Wade opinion. I believe we need to get some confidence back in our court, and that means we need more justices on the United States Supreme Court.
It's just so, there's a word for it. It's just so democratic. These leftists are vile, extreme, they're violent. They talk a whole lot about insurrection, but when they don't get what they want, then you see the true definition of insurrection. We've seen it multiple times and we're seeing it once again in Arizona and other places. Well, I'll just say it again, folks. All the Democrat labels and slanderous accusations, every single one of them, it's projection. From racism to undemocratic, fascism, authoritarian, extremist, domestic extremist, they point the finger at you, but they should be looking in the mirror. That's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.